True stories told by real people. As a kid at home for summer break, I had an interesting experience one morning. I lived in an old 3-bedroom house, small but comfy, with no central air, only window units. My parents had gone to work or whatever, leaving me alone in the house. Now my room was cool, but this is Texas, and the rest was very warm. So I get up to go get something in the kitchen. I start walking down the hall. Warm, 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 freezing, warm. A 20 to 30 degree drop in temperature. I stopped immediately and took a step back. Warm. I still cannot explain it, and to my knowledge up to that point, no one had died in that house. I know my father's mother had spent some of her last days with us, but she passed somewhere else, unless I was never told. I was young when she passed and have no memory of her. Edit, another one popped in my head. I had moved into my own place with my girlfriend, and one night the neighbors had a pretty good fight with some other people. Being an IT worker by trade, I'm not strong, and these guys were getting after each other. So I got my HK rifle out and loaded it for security. My setup is to put a loaded magazine in, but not put one in the chamber. It makes a noise that is usually enough to make trouble go away. Things finally calmed down and we were able to go to bed. Time goes by, and I find the rifle in the corner of the closet. I drop the magazine, lift it to my shoulder, and aim it toward the bedroom window. I'm about to mockingly pull the trigger when a voice inside my head screams, "Clear the chamber." I stop and pull the slide back to shockingly have a 7.62 millimeter round strike the wall next to me. I can't swear for sure, but my father had passed a year earlier, and it did sound like his voice.
I know that I'm very late to this thread and that this will probably not be seen, but whatever. I used to work at a library. The building was originally a schoolhouse. It's probably 80 plus years old. The library was in a small town, so they only had a budget for one employee to be working at any time the library was open. So anyway, I was working alone that evening. It was probably around 5:30, but it was in the winter, so it got dark early. I was walking back toward the office from the bathrooms. Something important to mention is that a murder occurred right next to the bathrooms a few years prior, when I heard something right behind me. I turned around, and there was nothing behind me. I proceeded to step forward by 3 steps and then stop and listen. After I stopped, I heard 3 more steps behind me. I of course turned around again and nothing was there. I repeated the whole 3 steps, wait, listen, and look back process one more time, still hearing 3 steps behind me, but seeing nothing. Then I calmly walked back to the office and watched Netflix. TLDR, steps right behind me. Another incident had occurred before though. I was in the main library room with my coworker. At that point, the town could afford for us both to work at the same time, and we were checking around and making sure that things were in the right place, as no one else was in the building at that time. She was standing right next to me as we were walking past a shelf. The shelf was not against a wall, but in the middle of the floor. As we passed by, 2 books and a metal bookend flew off the shelf. By flew off the shelf, I mean that it was like they had been punched from the backside. It wasn't like they simply fell. They were a good 2 to 3 feet away from the shelf. I just picked them up and put them back in place. TLDR, books being knocked off a shelf. If there is one thing I learned when I had that job, it's that I'm calm when it comes to the paranormal. Or you could say that I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Sorry for the reference, I couldn't help myself. If you have any questions, please ask.
At my boarding school when I was in the 8th grade, for 2 days I was running a manageable temp, but hairline to when they are required to take me to the hospital. Nausea growing like no other, exhaustion and sore muscles all over. I've been throwing up most evening and laid down way before lights out. Middle of the night I felt sick again, knowing I was needing to throw up. I throw my feet over my bed's edge. I look out my window. Now, I've been in the room for 2 years, same bunk even, by choice. I've looked out this window hundreds of times. Ground level, a grass expanse maybe 30 feet to a chain link fence, 7 feet tall. And directly behind it, one utility pole with a streetlight. No sidewalk, just a flat, long grass field of nothing for a 1/4 mile to a highway. But someone was standing in the shadow of the utility pole, staring at me. I felt eyes on me, paralyzed, unable to look away from this humanly figure masked in darkness. No one is ever out there, not even in the daytime. I wasn't frightened, just unable to move or look away. My mind racing to come up with a solution to what it could be, logically. I vomited right then and there, breaking free from this lock. I rush down the hall to the dorm bathrooms to finish hurling. The night shift staff hears me, retching. They go to my room, gather a clean set of clothes so I can shower. Miserably. I was in so much pain, sickness was all I could think about. The sickness and pain that could make a non-religious person religious, praying for better days, with promises of doing right by all wrongdoings. The dormitory showers connects to the bathrooms, which along one wall has 8 toilet stalls and 8 urinals partitioned, mostly sinks on the adjacent wall. I brush my teeth, still feeling sick, but I have nothing left to vomit. I walk up to the paper towel dispenser with my back to the entire length of the bathroom, something I've done hundreds of times too. I know I'm alone. This time, in the reflection in the plastic dispenser, I see someone standing at the other end of the bathroom, which is a good distance. No dramatic freeze or any frightening emotion, just sickness, almost like whatever. With my back still to the entirety of the bathroom, I walk out into the hallway. Med staff is there. They check my temp, asked if I feel like I need further care or assistance, but I just wanted to lay down. I make my way back to my room, pay no mind to what's out my window, still in a whatever mood, and fall asleep.
Since I was sick, morning staff only checked on me head count in the morning and didn't wake me, letting me sleep in. I woke up to the campus nurses checking on me, which is last line of defense before going to the hospital. Oddly enough, I felt perfect. I stood up, and best way to describe it was perfect. They checked my temp, and it was slightly above normal, but nothing compared to hours ago. I told them I was hungry, starving. I asked if I could go to class, but they denied that. Being alone in the dorms all day sucks. As I was alone, having eaten too, I continued to watch VH1 when I remembered the figure outside the fence line last night. I stared out my window, now in broad daylight, trying to figure out a reasonable explanation to how or what I saw. No patchy grass, no debris or trash. If it was a person, why my window? I went to the bathrooms, staring at the reflective plastic on the paper towel dispenser, even pressing it to hopefully warp a reflection into anything closely resembling what I saw last night. Nothing explainable. Only close explanation was being sick, but I know what I saw.
Story 4. The Haunted Navy Base House.
I really believe she kept me safe from something angry, if not pure evil. If not for that little mutt, I damn well could have lost my mind. She was my savior, and I will cherish her forever. Her ashes sit in a pine box in my man cave at home as I type this. One summer night, she had woken me up. She was trying to get under my blanket, pawing and nuzzling. She had her ears back, hair standing, and was shaking and whining. Something scared her to her doggy core. It scared me, too. I closed my eyes hard and pretended we were elsewhere. I managed to drift back to sleep. Sleep was interrupted again later that night. I awoke to what I can now describe as a cacophony. The window behind my bed had slammed closed. I opened my eyes in surprise. The old computer was on. It was a DOS computer. For you kids, there wasn't a graphic interface. You had to type in commands to open programs. The keyboard was clicking away with random characters typing onto the screen. I howled in fear. I cried for my mom and dad. Mom tells me she thought I was being murdered. My still skeptical dad came rushing in. He saw the computer, saw the characters appear on screen, heard the mechanical clicking of keystrokes. He lunged at the power supply and turned it off. The computer remained on for just a few seconds, but it seemed like forever. As the screen went dead, there was this noise. I still can hear it when I'm alone in the dark. It was this guttural groan. It sounded as if someone was being choked with lungs full of water. It was the most frightening thing that happened. Then the clicking stopped, as did my father's skepticism. A few days later, some naval officers came to visit. I didn't know at the time, but one was a child psychologist, the other was a chaplain. They talked to my brother and I together and separately. I remember how odd some questions were, like asking if adults had ever touched us. Then we talked openly about things we saw and heard in the house. The chaplain seemed most interested. Brother and I both had a few visits with the psychologist in the hospital as well. After their first visit, though, we stayed in a Holiday Inn on the beach. It was such a relief. We never went back to that house. In a rather unprecedented event, and after several talks with the chaplain and doctor, the Navy granted my parents an allowance to pay for off-base housing. Turns out our complaints weren't the only ones. For years there had been numerous claims in housing, the sailors' work areas, all over the base. Ours was probably just the most serious.
So, in 2019, my great-grandma died. I was going to say something while we paid her respects that I wrote but didn't get a chance to, so I ended up doing it afterwards because I had a slight belief in the paranormal and afterlife. My mom recorded the moment where I read out my speech, and when we went back to look at the recording, there was this white orb that flew by in front of the camera. My dad says it was a piece of dust, but we all said that it was her. I looked it up later if there was such thing as an orb ghost, and there was. It's a newly dead, nice spirit. It fit my great-grandma perfectly. The site also said they could only be captured by cameras. Any normal camera will do. This happened a month later when we were recording something on her birthday, and we showed my dad again, and he said it was dust again. But again, it can't be a coincidence. It's just too perfect of timing. Also, for months after her death, this thing would happen with the electricity, where it would cut for like a half second. The electric company would always have to come, it was like 3 times, and check out what happened to only our house. Also, to add on to that, my mom goes to a psychic every 5 years or so just for fun, and the most recent one said, "Watch for the blinking lights." After my great-grandma's death, this clock stopped working and started blinking. And if you don't know, every time the lights would flicker, it would cut power to the clocks as well, causing them to reset and flash, waiting to be reset to the correct time. Even more, after the lights flickered for the 3rd time, I told my mom how it was nice knowing that she's here and watching, but it is a little freaky since ghosts. The flickering stopped. Honestly, I kind of regret saying that because it, again, was nice knowing that she was there. There was also another instance where my brother was like, "If you are here, move this thing off my dresser," and he claims that the thing fell down with no force applied to it. I think he was just making that up, but thought I should mention it. Ever since she died, I have believed in ghosts. I won't let anyone tell me otherwise because I know that the paranormal exists. Also, I hope reading this and the other replies to this post makes you believe as well.
This happened many years ago when my family moved into an old farmhouse. I was about 3 at the time. The house was so old that the walls were hand-split boards, covered by newspaper, hessian, and layers of wallpaper and paint. My father was a skeptic and made fun of any belief in the paranormal, so my mother never mentioned anything on her side of the family until I was in my 20s. So here I am now, many years later, having been brought up to be skeptical about anything paranormal, but knowing there are a lot of things that I can't explain. One of the many is my lady in black. As a 3-year-old, shortly after we moved into the old house, I suddenly developed an imaginary friend. I'd never had an imaginary friend before, apparently, but my mom just accepted this as a passing phase children go through. Unlike most children, however, my friend was apparently an elderly woman in a long black dress, white hair and a high bun, with a rather distinctive white horse brooch at the center of the collar of the high neck. I always referred to her as my lady in black. Nothing much there, I suppose. A lot of children have imaginary friends. Where it gets a little weird is as follows. When I was about 4, my mother was frantically looking for me in the house. I was ill and supposed to stay in bed, but she couldn't find me inside the house. She even started checking under the beds and in the wardrobes. She was about to leave the house to look for me when she looked out a kitchen window, and there I was, up the paddock with my father, filling the water trough. About 30 minutes later, I came in. Apparently, I stopped at the door of the kitchen, cocked my head to one side and looked up, and then looked at her and asked her why she was looking in the wardrobes for me when I was with my father. I then looked up again and back to my mom and said, "I'm sorry I scared you." My mom asked me how I knew she was looking for me, and I told her, "The lady in black told me you were worried," and then named places she had looked for me and said, "But you looked out the kitchen window and saw me with Dad." I also remember telling my mom that my lady in black came to say goodnight to me and tuck me in. All I remember of this is a nice, comforting feeling, but I could hear my mother and father talking in the living room. I found out years later that my sister would give visits too. However, she is highly religious now and refers to our old home as demon-possessed, and that I was possessed as a child.
She got a bit drunk one night and told me tales that I had forgotten, but checked with other family members that confirmed them. I would write off the one about vibrating floorboards that my sister used to prove I was demon-possessed. However, when I asked my skeptic father about it, he just says he doesn't want to talk about anything weird that happened in the house. That story goes that at times I would be in the living room playing and the floorboards would start vibrating. Any person in the room could feel it through their shoes. However, if you got within a 1-meter radius of where I sat, they would not be. If you stood with 1 foot within that radius and 1 outside, you could feel the vibrations through the foot farthest away from me. I honestly don't remember any of this. I do remember family members at times walking around me at times. I remember asking my sister if she was doing the hokey pokey. You put your left foot in, you put your left foot out, because it was annoying me. But I don't remember it being raised with me. As I got older, I stopped talking about my lady in black openly because my father didn't like it. But I still would acknowledge her presence to my mother, who was much more open to these things.
When I was about 8, my father started renovating the inside of the house and removing the old hand-split boards off the walls. My mom told me later that while removing the walls, an old photograph fell out, and it was a picture of an elderly woman, white hair and a high bun, dressed in a long, high-necked black gown, and at her neck was a white brooch, almost exactly as I had described my imaginary friend in the years before. My description of her never changed, and I'd even drawn pictures of her. My skeptic father passed it off as a coincidence, as I had always mentioned a white horse brooch, so according to my mom, he got out a magnifying glass to look closer at the brooch. He then tossed the photo and magnifying glass down, swore, and left the house. My mother then looked at the photo with the magnifying glass. Closer examination showed it was a white horse facing the way I said it would. When my dad came back in, he told my mom that it was a coincidence. When my father left for his afternoon shift, my mother got out all her old family photos, some from the same era, and mixed the photo from the wall in among them. She laid them out on the kitchen table before I came home from school.
I came home from school, saw the photos on the table, and immediately picked up the picture and asked what her name was, because this was my lady in black. I remember that, because I was so excited to see this picture and find out who she was. My lady in black didn't come around as much after that. I don't know if I got too old or if opening the wall and finding the photo released her in some way.